This is the Loaded Radio Podcast.
Hey, it's Scott Penfold, and welcome back to another edition of the Loaded Radio Podcast. And it is great to be here, man, and great to have you here, of course, with us. And this week on the show, I'm speaking with the one and only Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse. Just one of the most, I think, one of the greatest, most killer bass players out there in extreme metal. Hell, you know, and just in metal, the guy's awesome. Now, the Florida death metal veterans, being Cannibal Corpse, have the new album Chaos Horrific, which is dropping September 22nd via Metal Blade Records. And from the tracks that we've heard so far with stuff like Summon for Sacrifice and Bloodblind, I mean, we're in for just a big old serving of brutality, courtesy of Cannibal Corpse, man. And yeah, I can't wait to hear this whole album. Before we speak to Alex, though, as always, if you are listening to this podcast via YouTube, we just ask that you give us a thumbs up, or even follow the channel if you like, if you want to get crazy, right? As we do appreciate that. It certainly does help the channel and keep you updated with all the stuff that we do, all the weekly big name interviews. Or if you're listening via the Loaded Radio app, Spotify, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, or any of those things, just sit back, relax as we get down to this conversation with Alex Webster. Now, he is a founding member of the band Cannibal Corpse. The band formed in 1988 and have really been the forefront of death metal, really defining the genre and just spearheading it in an incredible way. This album was put together soon after the last album, Violence Unimagined, dropped, so it does have a very similar feel, almost call it a sequel, possibly. And when you got it produced by Eric Rattan, who is now also a member of the band, you're going to get exactly what you expect when it comes to Cannibal Corpse. And joining us live right now on the show, right here on the Loaded Radio Podcast, is a longtime bassist for the band, Alex Webster. Alex, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast this week, man.
Hey, doing good. How are you?
Great to speak to you again, my friend. Always look forward to talking to you.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me again.
No problem at all. The tracks I've heard off the new album are just so great, man. Just so killer. And again, once again, your sixth time with Eric Rattan producing, and the fact that he's a full-time member of the band, I think is just so cool as well. How is it having like Eric, you know, take on that role within the band as producer, and as well, you know, being on the road with essentially your producer as your guitar player?
You know, he ends up doing a lot of work. You know, I ask him sometimes, I'm like, man, you know, do you want to do all this? And he does. You know, he's just such a hardworking guy. But you know, we let him know, yeah, if you ever want to just play guitar, that's fine too. But he's just such a hard worker and so good at wearing all these different hats. You know, he's a top level producer. He's, you know, a amazing rhythm and lead guitar player and an amazing songwriter and lyricist on top of it. So he does all of those things in our band. And yeah, when you have someone that you work with as a producer, even though he's, you know, the new guy, quote unquote, in the band, he's someone we've worked with a lot. And then he also is sort of a natural leader. So he really is involved in a way that maybe another person who had just recently entered the band wouldn't be, you know, as much. You know, he's just super active in everything our band does and is really, just such a hard worker. So it's great. But I told him he can take it as easy as you want to, you know what I mean? Because he's doing a lot. He's wearing a lot of hats with us.
Now, you've previously said that Chaos Horrific is almost a continuation of Violence Unimagined. Why would you say that?
You know, because we had just finished with the recording, you know, the writing, recording, and mixing of of Violence Unimagined. And then we just started writing Chaos pretty quickly after that because we had no touring lined up. Normally, what we've done over our career is, you know, we'll write an album, then record it, and a couple months after it's recorded, it gets released, and we'll have a tour that coincides with that, and we'll be touring in various parts of the world over the course of, you know, 2 to almost 3 years. And that didn't happen because of the pandemic. So we did not want to just sit around. So we're like, well, let's just start writing again. So Violence Unimagined was still really fresh on our minds when we were writing Chaos. And I think it helped us. It sounds like a continuation, and it helped us avoid repeating ourselves because we, you know, we're so close to the Violence Unimagined material that writing new material, it was easier to make that conscious effort to avoid repeating what we had just done, you know?
Yeah, no, I get you too. From what I've heard, the tracks I've heard off it so far, I know you've discussed this before, but there does seem to be a little bit more of a technical element that maybe wasn't on Violence Unimagined as much. But was that something intentional?
No, that kind of stuff, it either happens or it doesn't. It's I don't think anyone in the band at this point is writing things just to kind of make them technical. You know what I mean? I think everybody writes, and if it turns out technical or if it's actually really straightforward, it's all in the service of making the song the heaviest, best song it can be.
Right.
And so, yeah, if it sounds more technical, it's really just a result of the songwriting process. And that's what those particular songs called for, were things that are sort of tech, as opposed to it being an actual push to be more technical. I had done that a little bit with some of my writing back around The Wretched Spawn and Kill. On those albums, I was pushing pretty hard to push the tech envelope, but we've kind of settled into just writing song by song and making each song, as heavy as it can be. And if one style of writing or the other, tech or simple, it doesn't matter. It's just want to make the heaviest song we can.
I want to talk about some of the songs that have been available thus far. Summon for Sacrifice, the latest. I love the concept. 13 people individually dismembering a person piece by piece until they die. Damn, man. Where did that song come from for you guys?
Well, Rob wrote the lyrics, Rob wrote the music and Paul wrote the lyrics. So I'm a little bit unqualified to answer that, specifically, but I'd say just more generally with lyrics and stuff, we're at a point where we've been writing about horror for a long time, and we've covered a lot of the things that you would expect from a band that sings about horror. So the way to keep things fresh is to come up with very specific scenarios, using our own creativity as writers, trying to think of new, in our case, for the type of band we are, new horrible things to write about, So I think Paul probably just kind of conjured that up with his imagination, and I'm not sure from where, but his lyrics, he really knows how to make them fit with a particular song's music. He also wrote the lyrics for the title track, Chaos Horrific, which I'm not sure if you've had the chance to hear yet, but
no.
He just did an amazing job on that one as well. And really, Paul's a great lyric writer in that the lyrics have a really interesting content, and then they're also really catchy. So, but so that's kind of a long answer to your question, but we have to be sort of specific these days. You can't just write a general song about zombies or a general song about serial killers in general. It's got to be like this very specific kind of scenario for each song to keep it fresh.
Certainly so. I mean, I love some of the content too. I mean, the track Vengeful Invasion, I love the concept of that song. Just the revenge factor when it comes to something like human trafficking, which is like a seriously dark thing, which is very prevalent these days.
Yeah, and that's one Rob wrote the lyrics for and the music, and that's something where Rob, when he's writing lyrics, I've noticed a lot of his are a little bit more reality based and inspired by things that have actually happened. Where, for me, for example, sometimes I'll just conjure up some kind of supernatural or surreal scenario for horror. Rob kind of likes that more realistic horror. And of course, that song is written about something that unfortunately is real. I don't think the specific thing that he's singing about, the specific storyline is something that actually happened, but it's the setting is something that is actually real, that happens in the real world. So it's that kind of horror is often the scariest because it's more realistic. Like I said, I do tend to enjoy supernatural horror and surreal horror, but the scariest is often the stuff that's the most real.
And another song, one more song I wanted to ask you about was the song Bloodblind. That was we just sort of came out of the gate with that one. Killer, just ripping track. What can you tell me about that one in particularly?
Okay, so that one is a song that Eric wrote the music for, and Paul wrote the lyrics. And again, that one, I don't know too much about what Paul meant with the lyrics. so it would be a better question for him as well.
Right.
But musically, it's just one of my favorites on the album. I think Eric did just such a great job with that. It's so heavy. I can't wait to play it live. That's one of the ones I'm really looking forward to playing live, because it's just such a dark, heavy, menacing song. I can't wait. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Now, the actual writing process, I mean, you talked about, how you Paul write the lyrics, and I know George usually comes in toward the end to lay down the vocals. But what is the actual writing process for a Cannibal Corpse album? Do you guys sit together in a room, or are you bringing stuff into each other? How does that work?
Well, in the really old days of the band, we used to write together. Yeah, and most of us didn't even have 4-track recorders or anything at home. We're talking like 1988, 89, 90.
Like the Buffalo days, yeah.
Exactly. So those were days it was very collaborative, and I think we had some hits and misses in terms of how we wrote back then. Some of the songs kind of meander a bit because there wasn't really a plan, when we started writing them. Yeah. But at the same time, some of them are really exciting, interesting songs. So that way of writing can work. But over the years, we gravitated towards each of us writing our own songs and then presenting the band with them. So that's how we've been doing it lately. And that's how we did it for this album. Eric will write his songs at home. I'll write mine at home. Rob will write his at home, and with Paul, sometimes they'll work together. And after the music always comes first, and then the lyrics come. And sometimes, whoever wrote the song will write the lyrics, and sometimes it'll be Paul. Paul's, like I said, Paul just has a good, he's got a knack for writing really good lyrics. So sometimes if I've got something in mind for my songs, I'll write it. But if I'm kind of drawing a blank, I'll give it to Paul, and I'm always happy with what he comes up with.
Yeah. And for your writing, in particular for you, Alex, I mean, you've made the sound of the bass just so prevalent in your style of death metal. And I love that because I'm a bass player myself. And I mean, like, one of the first riffs I learned was the hammer smash bass intro riff. And I love what you've done with bass for death metal. But when you're writing yourself, are you sitting there like at the edge of your bed with a bass? I mean, like say many other musicians might be, and just dumping things into your phone. Like, what's your process personally?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll sit there with a bass. I have my a computer with my recording stuff, and I'll be sitting at the computer and I'll have the bass. And what I'll do is I'll set up. I'll use a tab program to help me keep my ideas straight. And as I write things, I'll put them into tab. I'm pretty good with transcribing things I'm okay at it. So sure. I get all that stuff down. And what I like to do is if I don't really have an idea of what I'm going to do, I'll just come up with a tempo. I'll pick a tempo. Like, I haven't written a song at 140 beats per minute in a while. Let's do that. And then I'll think, okay, well, what scale haven't I used in a while? And I'll start out with a scale, and then maybe also pick a time signature. Most things end up being in 4/4, but sometimes it is fun to try, something in 5/4 or 7/8, just little things to make things rhythmically different. And so giving myself a few little boundaries to stay within can help spur creativity. I'm like, what can I do? Trying to stick with these little parameters I've set here. And so that's where I'll go. And then I'll put it into tab as I come up with things that I think are good, and go through that. And then a lot of times after I get the whole song done, I'll then program in a drum part. And I can send Paul the basic idea what I want the drums to be along with the music. And with Pro Tools, I'm not a good guitar player, but with Pro Tools, you can really just go through things. So I'll actually make guitar on these demos too most of the time these days, okay. Where I just have to record it little bit by little bit because I'm not a real guitar player. Sure. But yeah, I can send the guys a fairly complete idea what the song's going to be like. So that's my process. And like I said, setting some boundaries, with tempo and a particular scale and so forth and meter can really help spur creativity for me.
We're now upon the band's 35th anniversary. Are there any special commemorative plans aside from touring in support of the album? Not that I'm aware of. There's always that chance that our label had something in mind, or our management. But
that almost just goes to show you just how long we've been around, to where we're like, 35 years. That's cool. Let's wait till the 40th. That's kind of the way I've been thinking about it. I'm like, let's do a big celebration for the 40th, because, when you're first starting out, you get to 10 years. It's like, wow, that is a big accomplishment. So to make it up to, once you start getting up to these kind of numbers, it's like, well, we're not going to make a big celebration every 5 years, but I feel like when we get up to 40th, 5 years from now, that'll be time for some sort of commemorative something. I'm not sure what, be that, a tour where we play an entire album or something like that, or maybe a box set or something. But for the 35th, we didn't really plan anything. We're just really excited to be able to get back out there and do more touring and support this new album. Really with the pandemic and everything, I think, we're far from being alone in this too. It created a situation where fans are hungry for live music, and we were hungry to play. We weren't used to sitting around for a couple of years. So we're just happy to be back out there playing again. I can't wait. We're actually starting a tour in just a few weeks from now. So looking forward.
Yeah, you're going to be hitting the road with Mayhem. Actually, since you did mention that you're going to be hitting the road with Mayhem as well, Gorguts and Incantation in September. Are you fans of Mayhem? I mean, is there a kinship? I mean, would you say between like death metal, black metal? Do you know the guys? You like the guys?
I've met them just briefly here and there, and I honestly don't listen to them that much. Of course, I've heard them, but I think there is a kinship between the two scenes because we come from the same root, and I think we'll get along great with these guys. I know that Eric toured with them when he was in Hate Eternal. Mayhem and Hate Eternal toured together, and he had a great time with them. So, we're looking forward to the tour. It's going to be fun. And we're all kind of in the same age group. So not that we love to tour with young bands too. A lot of the tours we do, it's basically age 18 to 60 is the range, and everything in between at this point, because death metal and other kinds of extreme metal have been around for decades at this point. But it's always kind of fun to be out there with a bunch of guys that have had similar experiences and probably grew up listening to a lot of the same stuff, like people that were teenagers in the 80s, that are into metal. We all listen to a lot of the same bands. So it's always fun to hang out with people like that. And we have the same root, there's all these forms of music. And even if it's a younger band that might not even really be aware that the bands that inspired them are inspired by these same roots, they are, though. Like it's, Venom, Possessed, Celtic Frost, Hellhammer, Bathory. These are all bands that inspired all these different types of extreme metal. Ultimately, they're the beginning of what led to a multi-branched, very diverse extreme metal scene that includes death metal and progressive death metal and black metal and all these different types of metal and thrash, of course. And, from there you get everything else too, deathcore and so forth. I mean, it all starts more or less in the same place, in my opinion. And that's why it can all work together when you do a tour that's got variety like this.
Certainly so. I'm just thinking here myself now, 35 years, in that 35 years time, or even maybe recently, has there ever been any talk of any sort that having the band involved in an actual horror film of any sort? Because, if anyone could do it, it would be Cannibal Corpse.
We've been approached by some people, but we never found anything where it was going to work for us really, or where it just seemed like the right fit. Right. And it never got beyond like a talking stage kind of thing, but we are open to the idea. We're always willing to hear from people, like what if they were interested in having us be part of something like that, we're interested to hear what it's about. And also it would be, something we'd be open to too, is if someone was doing, say, a horror anthology or something and wanted to base a movie off of one of our song lyrics or something like that, that would be an interesting idea too. I think we've got some that could possibly be pretty cool little either short story horror form, like a short film, or maybe something even longer. And in a way, some of our videos end up being a very short form movie, for the Violence Unimagined videos, it's basically David Brodsky taking our lyrics. David Brodsky and Alex they're taking our lyrics and making movies out of them, because I was on the other side of the country, so we didn't have any of the band in the videos at that time.
Right.
So they worked together and made little movies about what we did. And that's about as close as we've come to being in a movie at this point. But in a way, yeah, like the Necrogenic Resurrection video and the Inhumane Harvest video are like two little mini horror movies set to our music.
Even one of the latest, Someone for Sacrifice, I made a bit of a mini horror movie there too, kind of graphic too. I loved it.
Yeah. That, once, since the pandemic was over, when we filmed those videos, we were like, well, we do need to have the band in there a lot. And so for Bloodblind, it's just all band.
Yeah.
Plus that seemed like one that would have been difficult to translate, sure. Like the lyrics seemed like that it would have been a tall order to really make that into a video. So we were like, well, let's, we haven't done a video where we were in it in a little while. So let's do that. And then for the other videos, I don't think I'm supposed to say which is the next video, but yeah, for Summoned, and there's one coming another one coming in a couple weeks, the band is in it.
Cool.
And but it is also still with a horror story interspersed, and again, that's the same team, Dave and Allie, working on these. And yeah, they do such a great job. They really, we've been lucky over the years to find people to work with that really understand what we're going for. And we've kind of settled into working with a lot of the same people again and again, because they just get it, working with Eric as a producer, and then obviously him joining us as a guitar player, Dave and Allie doing videos, and like Vince Locke for all these years doing our artwork, so yeah, working with Metal Blade Records. So when we find a good team of people to work with, we stick with them.
Let's talk about George for a second. Did you like George?
Sure.
Did you like Corpse Grinder's solo album? Did you like it?
I've only listened to it a little bit, but I liked it. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool too. I mean, it first came out, not a Cannibal record per se, but he's just got that dominating voice, that signature, the signature, growl that he's got it comes across so well. So.
Yeah, no, he rips, and anything he's going to be singing over is going to sound killer. And I think the music is great. He's got a great band for the side project, and it's killer. And I think they're going to continue doing stuff. So look for more from Corpse Grinder soon. I mean, he's keeping busy with us and them, and they might even end up doing some shows too.
Oh, nice. Very cool. And the thing is, I love the juxtaposition of Corpse Grinder as well, becoming that horrifying on-stage performance he does with the brutal vocals, yet at the same time donating plushies to children's charities. Do you think it's important for that to be recognized? I mean,
yeah, I think it's cool, that he does that stuff. And it also, it kind of helps, for sure, our band in particular, I guess, but also really the whole death metal scene in a way, and especially the bands that sing about horror, graphic violence like we do, it can often be misunderstood. People, they don't look at it the same way they'd look at a gory horror movie, and the people that make that, right. they might consider those people to be, oh, well, they're normal, they're making a movie. But when you sing about something, it's supposed to be, people are used to hearing someone sing about something that happened in their life, like a relationship problem or something like that. They're not used to people singing about the kind of things that we do, right. That we have no personal experience with. We're just telling horror stories. And so for people, people in the scene already know what George is like. I think that's no secret, that he's just this big, nice guy, but people outside the scene might end up bumping into some of those news articles that show him donating the plushies and stuff. And they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, these guys can't be that bad, So yeah, it's, I hope it helps further demonstrate that there's a separation between the stuff we write about and the kind of people we are. I mean, couldn't be any more separate, really.
Well, I mean, even 35 years later, are you still met with resistance in certain markets or certain places? I mean, with picketers, anything like that still? Yes.
Every once in a while, there might be like a religious picketer. That does happen. Some people that, and we've never really had religious we've had probably a few anti-religious lyrics here and there, but overall, that's not what we cover really. But we have had some stuff like that. And then we have censorship problems in Germany specifically, where they have an index of songs that are not supposed to be performed. And there's a lot of artists on there, but we also are on there and have a lot of songs that we're not supposed to play when we're over there. So it does make us, and it's weird too, because it's not every city in Germany that has that problem. It's only a few of them. So it leaves us a little bit confused, and we end up having to change our set list when we're in Germany a lot of the time, and that's aggravating. But in general, any place where, you would expect there to be freedom of music and artistic expression, we're fine. Like obviously there's certain countries that are ultra conservative where they just don't allow anything like us, or even bands that are a lot less, controversial. But in the places where people typically play, we usually do all right. It's just, for some reason, Germany, we keep having these censorship problems.
Yeah, I was reading about that as well recently. Also, something that's happened is sort of in the recent past, I could say, would be when performing live. George may make a few comments, almost not direct, but side comments regarding your original singer and his apparent grumpiness with the state of modern day death metal. How do you take that? I
mean, I don't really put too much, emphasis on any of that stuff. Right. I think, people should be able to say whatever they want. And if, people have an opinion about music, that's, why should they keep it hidden? I guess, if Chris doesn't like something, he's absolutely free to say he doesn't like it. And then people are free to say they don't like his opinion. I mean, so I don't really care, about that. I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and it's fine. And everybody, we all love music so much, especially I found metal fans. We're also passionate about it. We're just prone to debate and argue. And I think it reflects how much we all, care about this music, like it's not just background music to us, like I feel like some of this music, if you go into McDonald's and you can hear a song in the background, then it just seems to me it's probably not interesting enough to have dedicated fans. It's just sort of background music, but metal, and other kinds of music that really require your attention and get you engaged. That's also, it's not in the background for us, literally or figuratively, you know what I mean? Like it's something very important to all of us. It's our hobby in many ways, it's what we're into. And we're going to argue about it sometimes because we care about it. So I think it's fine.
Now, is there a relationship there with Chris Barnes at all today? Or is it kind of like just sort of you do your thing, we're doing our thing? Or
pretty much, yeah. He can do his thing, we do ours. I mean, if I see him, it's always friendly, but I haven't seen him in a few years. But to each their own, and it's all cool at this point. We don't really run into each other, though. They haven't toured in a while. So normally when you see everybody and you reconnect with people is at festivals, especially mainly the European ones, I should say, because that's where the majority of the festivals are. And we reconnect with a lot of people there, bands we've toured with, friends, crew members that we know working with other bands. So that's where I would run into him. And they haven't been doing that stuff in a little while. So maybe we'll see him next year or something, though. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I mean, being that he's working with Jack Owen as well with the band, I mean, did you commonly get asked by fans if the bands are ever going to tour together or that kind of thing?
People have asked, but I think, again, 6 Feet just doesn't really tour that much. And, we probably wouldn't do it. It's, right. It's, like you said, sort of everything's cool, but it's sort of like, you do your thing, we'll do our thing, and it's fine.
All right. Now I got one more question for you, Alex, and I'll let you go. Sure. And I do appreciate your time so much. Which 3 albums would you consider to be essential death metal albums for someone who's just getting into the genre?
Oh, essential death metal albums. Well, I would say Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness, Death, Scream Bloody Gore, and Autopsy, Severed Survival.
Oh, that's just
albums. Boom, right off the top of my head. Those are 3 of the most important to me. So, and I think there's a lot of other people that would share that opinion. So start with those 3. Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness, Death, Scream Bloody Gore, Autopsy, Severed Survival. Start there, and, hopefully that opens up a whole world of killer new music for you.
Awesome, Alex. Thank you so much for your time today, man. Always a pleasure talking to you. And I will hopefully see you out there on the road soon, man. Looking forward to seeing you guys live again.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much for the interview. And yeah, looking forward to seeing everybody on the road. We'll be out there real soon.
Take care, Alex.
Awesome. Take care, man.
There he is. That's Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse. The new album is Chaos Horrific, and it drops on the 22nd of September, and it sounds killer thus far. I cannot wait to hear the rest of that album, as you probably can't as well, man. I mean, yeah, it's Cannibal Corpse after all. Don't forget to check out loadedradio.com for all your hard rock and metal news that's updated constantly 24/7 for you. As well, you can get all that stuff to the Loaded Radio app, which is completely free. You can download that via loadedradio.com or wherever you get your apps, where you can get past episodes of this podcast, the 24-hour live stream, which has live personalities and shows and everything, man. Yeah, full-on radio station and so much more. Get that for yourself, okay? The Loaded Radio app, or just check out loadedradio.com. We'll talk to you again next week on an all-new edition of this show. Always good doing it, man, and goes by so fast. But yeah, we'll talk to you again next week right here on the Loaded Radio podcast. I'm Scott Penfold. We'll talk to you then.
Loaded Radio.